News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbreth, darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian. And man, I guess it's such a shame that this was belated, but all the same, a very happy, belated, but relevant Squirrel Appreciation Day.
Now, Max, okay, we've been trained as homeowners to view squirrels as our mortal enemies, and now we got to spend a whole day appreciating them.
Yes, thanks to a woman named Christy Hargrove back in 2001.
Okay, this may be one of your better holidays, I have to say.
I have to bait the hook out there.
Okay,
just putting it out there, folks. Text us on the text line your best or worst war stories or wonderful stories with squirrels, ideally with pictures, videos, or whatever.
Well, I say we do that, but I also say let's challenge ourselves. There's got to be a reason. We have to do something to appreciate them. I mean, they serve a purpose, right?
They do. Brown gravy and onions.
All right, Squirrel Appreciation Day is going to be a hot topic, I can tell. So
there's 200 species of squirrels to appreciate, so let's get at it.
Okay. So, all right, well that sounds like a good one. So, all right, well, here's some more good stuff, and it's a very local. Allan, how is it that we've never discussed this? In our great moments in building history, we have a conversation that's about 3 or 4 years overdue. The Memphis Aquifer. Now, is it technically, I mean, I guess it's a natural construction. It's a natural, but we have to cooperate. We have to protect the aquifer and then tap into it correctly. But
yes, Memphis has amazing water.
We do. I mean, that's like I've lived many places, and you can't even hold a candle to it. And that's one of the things. It's right beneath our feet, the crown jewel of our city. So we are going to celebrate that as well. Let's see. Allan's Week in Review is going to take us about half the show. You got well, it's actually spinning out into some other conversations too. So, but I'm not going to tease what you did, but it looks pretty well-rounded. And also on that note, we have a tool tale coming up, and we're going to put this out there right now. Cutting the cord.
Mm-hmm.
What? And let's face it. In full disclosure, it took me years to embrace battery-powered tools. But the more tools I get, the more I appreciate. Wow, it's nice not having that cord in the way.
When you said cutting the cord, I thought you were talking about literally disabling a bomb or something.
Oh, is that what it is?
Cutting the wire,
cutting the
cord.
Or giving birth, you cut the whatever. All right, Max, you always have a way of derailing.
Oh, you're welcome.
But there's many. It's not just the fact that it's that's what we're calling it, cutting the cord, and we've got some tools that we're going to celebrate in that regard. We've got a lot of other things that I'm not going to tease. So it's going to be a full day of fun activities. But before we get to any of that, let's go here. Let's get our must-have item of the week. And I guess it's fair to say must-have items, but it forms one purpose, right, Allan? So
it is my cold weather, frozen emergency kit.
Okay, now, if you can't see this over the radio, or if you haven't checked our Facebook page, it's up on the Facebook page. But this is a 3-part kit, and it doesn't look expensive. No. I bet you this is under $40 or $50, right?
It's under $20.
It's under, really? Okay, so the first thing I'm holding is what looks like an extension cord. It's orange at the front. It's got a button, and then it's got about another 3 or 4 feet of cord that just ends. If you looked at it at first, you'd say, "What the heck is this?" But what's happening with this cord?
It looks utterly and completely useless. It looks like somebody was experimenting with, can I mess up an extension cord?
Yeah.
What you are actually holding is affectionately referred to as hot tape.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically what that is, it is a heating pad for your pipes.
Okay.
So if you have a frozen pipe or nearly frozen pipe, or a pipe that is in danger of freezing, you got, outside wall, maybe you have an exposed area, you've got just a little bit of piping there, it can be wrapped with hot tape, plugged in, and it will keep it from freezing.
Okay, so this, because I can see there's remnants of lots of tape. I can see
it's been used quite a bit.
Taped on over the years. So, well, here's my question about this. So we all know about frozen pipes, but Mostly, it seems to me that the places where the pipes freeze, at least in my experiences, it either freezes right by, like if you have a kitchen sink on the outside wall.
Exactly.
Okay, if you didn't open the cabinet and you didn't drip the faucets, it seems like it's going to freeze around that area, and it's usually also accompanied by an outside spigot. At least ours is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very vulnerable spot. So
Very.
you would wrap this under the.
Last year, actually, I wrapped that around a spigot and then put a protective cover over it because the spigot was not a frost-free, and we were going to go down to 0 degrees.
Okay, gotcha.
So what it did was it kept the spigot and thus the ensuing water behind it above freezing.
Okay, and then so then the other places, like the place where ours froze in the famous freeze of 2022, where I spent Christmas Day fixing a pipe, with a burst pipe. That was 20 feet away. That was up in the attic.
In the attic. Mm-hmm.
So, it makes sense to have a couple of these things where, and would you preemptively plug it in, like if it's going to be 5 degrees outside?
Oh, there are a lot of facilities all over the city, all over the country that have pipes tape wrapped like that all the time.
Okay. So how hot will this get? I guess I always think of, fire hazards or
no,
something.
it gets just above freezing.
Okay, so it just keeps it from freezing.
Right. You're not gonna burn yourself on it. No.
It's a subtle defrost.
So if you do have a frozen pipe that hasn't split, the number one worst mistake people make is trying to get it too hot too quick.
Like with the hairdryer.
Or they get out the hairdryer or something like that, and what happens is you can create an expansion point or a shrinkage point because ice expands.
Right.
Ice has got serious lifting power. Ice can lift your house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
it
anybody
wins.
Yeah.
Ice always wins.
Yeah. Well, any of our listeners in Chicago can probably text in and vouch that ice will pick your house up if your mounts are not done correctly.
So
Absolutely.
is ice like water is the enemy, like on steroids?
It is. It is in a lot of ways because, all right, well, let's take a look at our dear roads after you have a big cold snap.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happens. You've got a little micro crack in the asphalt somewhere.
Right.
Okay, no big deal. Nobody cares. All summer long, nobody cares. But in the winter, when it starts, everything starts cooling down and everything starts shrinking, that little crack opens up and now water gets in it. Well, that water fills a certain amount of space.
Yeah.
But when it freezes, to give you an idea of snow is generally 8-1.
What
So
does that
8
mean?
inches of snow equals 1 inch of rain.
Oh, I never knew that. That's interesting.
So just kind of give you an idea. And when ice starts expanding and growing and building on itself, it is very, very powerful.
It makes me think of like that thing. It's like the thing that wouldn't leave.
Well, in a lot of ways, it is
Yeah.
because of one of the instances we saw recently was of underneath a raised home. So the home has a crawl space, but underneath it, on a far side, there was a hole where a pipe obviously had come out of the of the bracing underneath there.
Right.
But now the pipe wasn't there anymore for whatever reason. It might have been an old gas pipe or whatever. But now there's a hole.
Yeah, and that hole lets a lot of cold air in.
almost becomes a flamethrower of cold.
Yeah.
Because that cold air is honestly jettisoning in there and blowing right on those pipes.
Yeah, it's like a focused.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had a frozen pipe. It hadn't burst yet, but it was frozen. The water wasn't coming through. So we slide under, we wrap it in the heat tape. You come back a couple hours later, the water breaks free and flows nice without bursting the pipe.
I know there's cushioning and insulation that you could put on pipes, but my question is there certain metals or are there certain piping like mediums that you could use that are less prone to freezing?
PEX.
PEX?
Yes,
That's what that's all about, man.
That is the biggie, yeah.
It looks like nothing. It just looks like a little flimsy plastic tube, but that's what it's about. It's the flexible. It's supposed to expand.
It's super stretchy. It's the
and
stuff
it doesn't look like anything. It just
looks like a plastic tube.
right.
But wait till until you try to cut one of those things.
Yeah.
Having done a PEX installation recently, you got to have a PEX cutter.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're going to find out just how tough that stuff really is. I mean, it is amazing.
It's some feisty stuff. And also, Max, in Chicago, one of the reasons you didn't just pour water into your coolant tank in your car because, it was overheating is because in the winter, it'll freeze and ice can crack a car engine.
You crack your block.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes me think of the idea of like there are certain like fires that you can't put out with water because that just by virtue of the properties of those particular materials, like you were saying with like ice and with like cold water, like magnesium fires, just as a random aside.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's done this.
Well,
Don't put a soda in the freezer.
There's one more item that we didn't even get to. That's part of the winter water prep kit. We'll hit that, and then we've got a tool tale involving battery powered tools. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Ow! Those gears down there really hurt.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. If you're just tuning in, we didn't even finish our must-have item of the week, which are must-have items which make up the winter water prep kit that Allan brought in. He was just telling us about the heating cord that is used to defrost pipes or heating tape. Either way that you want to go with that. But then there is another part of this kit. There's two more
pieces here. One of them is a simple little cap.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's
a plastic cap. It goes over your water spigot.
It can be, the plastic Lexan style, or it can be copper. There's even brass ones.
Yeah, I've used those.
And they are just designed to go over the end of your spigot.
Right, yeah.
They're just there to stop. And I use those generally if I'm going to have to pack foam around it for some reason.
Oh, interesting.
I used to do a lot of work up in Owensboro, Kentucky, which was right on the Ohio River.
Okay.
And the difference in the weather there, just a few hundred miles away, and the weather here is honestly night and day.
Yeah, they're north, so
it is the Arctic.
Right.
I mean, they regularly see -10, -15 degrees. So there, what you would do, and this is not a bad habit here either, is to go ahead and cap your outside spigot, put the little cap on it. They're a whopping like $1.99. Yeah, these are not expensive items.
Have a few of them in your junk drawer.
They're always good to have. And you put that on there, and it just keeps any debris or anything from getting up in it. And now you can pack it with foam or whatever, and then put your cap over it. Now,
it's just one extra layer of protection.
Yeah, it's just one more thing to keep it from going wrong.
Right.
And this is for anybody that hasn't updated to a frost-free spigot. And even if you've updated to a frost-free spigot, still cover it and protect it. Don't age it unnecessarily.
Right.
My last item is my favorite item, and that is a replacement spigot that you put over the one that is failing.
Now we have I've seen these too where it's the same thing. So basically, it's a little copper looking. You screw it onto the spigot, and then it has a little valve that turns 90 degrees, and then you can cut off the. So you could even have the spigot on, and then cut this off, and it stops the water.
Yes.
But I've even seen we have one where it's a splitter. You have two of them coming out, like if you want to run two hoses.
Yeah, your hose splitter, right?
But that little mechanism makes a world of difference. You said you had somebody that they had their spigot freeze up and was leaking and everything, and this is what you use to fix it.
Right. Well, this is my temporary. We've got to stop the water.
Right.
And if you've ever seen one of these are one of I love these things because they're so educational, because you can look through them. Because it's not actually attached to anything. You go to the big box store, you go to the hardware store, you pick one of these up. They're about $5, And you can look through them and you can actually see how the spigot mechanism works. And it's just a simple little ball bearing with a hole drilled in it that you're turning. And what it does is it lets you break that flow of water. And you can open it up full bore like you're going to water the grass, right? You can look through it, open it all the way up. And if your spigot has been damaged by ice and there's water oozing out and you can't turn the handle enough to turn it off, you can slap one of these up on it, open, and now the water sprays out the bottom of it.
So
now
it's messy, but not as messy as it
well,
would
now
be.
you can tighten it up.
Yep.
Got it good and firm, and now turn it off.
Right.
And now your water is back neat and in control, and you're not spraying water down the driveway. Is it fixed? No. Have you controlled the water and stopped the problem?
Yeah.
You got a good start.
It's kind of like, the TV show MASH. This is like plumbing triage.
It is.
All you're trying to do is keep them survive until the plumber shows up to fix it.
Until you can get it properly repaired, correct.
Okay, cool. Well, that was a pretty comprehensive one, but, I mean, you said this entire package is like $20. Well, why not have some of this at your house, So, all right, cool. The winter water protection prep kit. All right, well, let's shift gears, Max.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
Now, I don't want to give any spoilers of what you did on your weekend review, but it did, let's just say it involved a battery-powered tool, and we're calling this tool tale Cutting the Cord. Mm-hmm. And we would love to hear from you, dear listeners, about this. So, as we said, this is all about the dynamics at play when you remove the need for a cord to plug your tool in. And we're mostly talking about hand tools. I have to say, a battery-powered table saw is fine with, a plug-in table saw is fine with me.
I was just about to ask, being the contrarian, are there instances where it's better to have cord versus not? Because I was thinking that each probably serves its own strengths and purposes.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a big woodworking shop, you're not going to have a battery-powered planer or something like that. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about out on the field, doing your work with hand tools and stuff. And one of the tools that you said you used, which we'll get to shortly, I said, I've used that tool, and now that I'm thinking of it, getting rid of the cord would be nice because, man, it is cumbersome. It gets in the way.
Well,
and then I was just thinking about how many other tools are so much easier to use without a cord.
Well, case in point this week, fixing a burst pipe that had burst because of soil movement not freezing.
Right, yeah.
Because this was actually on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
There is no plug anywhere in usable distance of where we were working.
Oh, yeah.
We are way down a hill. There's a house way over there that the water's actually going to.
Right.
But we are a good 80, 90 feet away. And we are in a 3 foot across, 5 foot deep hole with a burst pipe at the bottom of it. And let me tell you, a reciprocating saw with a metal blade got that job done in about 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of trying to get down there with a hacksaw and could dig out even more room, we got it down to the pipe. We got that pipe cut. We got the section removed, got the new section glued up and in, out, and done 10 minutes.
There you go.
Now, back in the day, when you didn't have recourse to battery-powered stuff, would you still have what would you have done back in the day in order to bring power to you? Would you have just had a really long extension cord?
A couple of 100-foot extension cord.
Because I'm thinking about I'm just thinking about the people from way, way back in the day who had only plugins and they literally built skyscrapers on an industrial level. It's like, how did they do that?
Well,
and I'm guessing, do we still do that, or have we evolved to using hand power tools on the industrial scale?
Well, we use different tools now. If you want to go back in time all right, how would we have fixed that pipe before? Well, we would have dangled you, because you were the smallest one. So you would have been dangling upside down in a 5 foot deep hole with somebody sitting on your feet while you hung down there with a hacksaw and cut out the damaged section so that then we could get you down there with a threader and a pipe wrench, and you would thread both ends of it, and then we could make the double-ended repair and take care of the pipe. And that repair would have taken 3-4 hours
Versus
the 10 minutes you would have been dangling upside down in that hole.
I also want to say, if you're going to get a reciprocating saw, I would spend go in the battery powered route. Spend the extra $30 to get the really high end one, the one with all the good torque and the extra power. It makes a big difference.
There was a new one came out this Christmas that I absolutely adore.
And buy the correct pack of blades.
Yes.
Get a few extra blades. It's good to have them on hand because you don't want to be fighting with the thing. If you have a sharp blade, you're going to cut through tree limbs. Yeah. You're going to cut through pipe. You're going to cut
never
through
underestimate who might express interest in the reciprocating saw, i.e., I know what your wife does
Yeah.
with them.
Oh, she loves that thing. That thing just sits in a pride of place, and she grabs that thing and
it's not old blue like yours, it's old green.
Yeah, old green. So, well, there's a whole list here of tools that we've benefited from getting rid of the cord.
Well, your lawnmower
my lawnmowers. Well, not a cord, but getting rid of an engine. That's a good point. I didn't even have that on my list here, but I will say every single kind of sander that you could use is on my list as well. So we've got sanders, we've got other tools. I'm very tempted by another tool that I'll share with you coming up. But cutting the cord has been, I don't know, it's been game changing, and younger carpenters and younger craftsmen don't really realize how much they've benefited from a world of battery-powered tools.
I'm not dangling upside down in a pipe.
There you go, Max. We're going to talk a little more about cutting the cord, and also we're going to find out what Allan did this week. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I'm here to clean the carpets. Most of the world is carpeted, and one day we will do the cleaning.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. It's a good day to get over to Facebook and go to @Tool Talk Radio and check out the posts we've made over there. This is something we have must-have items, and then we have must-have items. And this one is pretty good, Allan. You brought in a winter water prep kit, and I really do think we should all have these. You said you can get a kit like this or similar for $20 or around there or something.
Or less, yeah.
Do it before, I'll tell you this, right down the street from my house, we had trucks. The whole road was blocked off because I was going to work, and you remember we had the sub-freezing temperatures, and then we had a day where it finally got above freezing, and suddenly you see water just running down the curb like a river, and they had to do some serious excavation to get it wherever this damage came from. It was one of our neighbors. So
does the extreme vacillation between between frozen and melting kind of create tension to where something could explode? Like with regards to like frozen pipes and stuff like that?
Well, you're pretty close. Let's go over how a frozen pipe occurs. The one we just repaired was on a hill, and there was, and again, Joe and you and I have said this a million times. Stuff moves.
Everything moves.
Hills move, mountains move, houses move, and this is on a hill, so the hill is moved a little bit, and just enough to put a tiny little hairline crack in the PVC pipe. However, being dead in the middle of winter, it's frozen. Well, that held it in place, and you don't get the water spraying until the ice melts, and it breaks free and allows the breakage to now work under pressure. And now you got water spraying everywhere. So basically what's going to happen is you're not going to know your outside spigot is frozen unless you look at it until it thaws, because the ice is providing the dam until it melts.
Right.
So yes, the thermodynamics of the metal or the material around it greatly expands and contracts based on the performance of the ice.
Because my thinking is that if anything remains standing still, once it's actually in motion again, it's going to become much more intense. Like when you get that sudden shot of water, like after you drip the pipes, and it's like all of a sudden.
And that's got air and everything coming through. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because once you get a hole and you start turning the water on and off, you're going to, you got to bring the system back up.
But also, gosh, we got a full roster here. We're in the middle of a tool tale about cutting the cord, which, and then I'm really interested in Max's conversation. I should mention, too, today is Squirrel Appreciation Day.
It's a belated, not today.
It's a belated.
We had enough time to vent our frustration before having the courage to talk about it.
Yeah, and Max actually said this is self-inflicted.
We are the makers of our own doom.
Why don't you just tell us that before we get back to our tool tale?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so, because this is something I think all listeners have opinions about squirrels.
Well,
good
first
or
of
bad.
all, we have Christy Hargrove back in 2001 to thank for the holiday itself, who was a wildlife rehabilitation specialist. She wanted to have this day be dedicated to us appreciating squirrels, and so I guess we're trying to do that today. But on to the topic of makers of our own doom. The first thing is, we wanted to introduce natural landscaping into our urban areas, so, why not bring the squirrel buddies along with us, rather than shooting them or, like they could feed on it, whatever's in the environment instead. So the first place to get it was Philadelphia Square in 1847, and then Boston and New Haven. They'd follow suit. But the thing is the squirrel experiment ended in the 1860s after they either were killed, amid concerns that they would disturb birds or insects, or they just passed away. But it's like, oh, wait, no, let's bring in the second volley in the 1870s. And this time in areas like New York, Boston, and D.C. So we are the makers of our own doom because we decided it'd be a good idea to bring in these squirrels. Kudzu.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds a lot like kudzu. It reminds me of how we have pigeons all over the big cities and everything, and all that. But I'm kind of curious.
Ask Australia about rabbits. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of curious about that. So, I mean, squirrels were obviously out in the forest. People grabbed them and brought them and just let them run free in the suburbs or something?
Oh, it gets even worse because bless our little friends across the pond.
Okay.
They had this beautiful, very peaceful, and quite attractive little red-eared squirrel. Didn't bother anybody, lived alongside you. And somebody came along and saw the American gray squirrel and thought they were just absolutely to die for. So they shipped some to their estate in England. And our gray squirrels don't play well with other squirrels and are now supplanting the native squirrel. And as we all know,
war.
Yeah, our native gray squirrel is aggressive. They're cute. They do a lot for the environment. They bury nuts and stuff like that. They're a woodland creature, but they're also insatiable chewers.
Yeah.
And, I can't appreciate squirrels in the fact that they've gotten me a lot of work over the years.
I was about to say, I mean, think of how much work Jay Hill and you and
Oh,
me
my
have gotten
gosh.
from squirrel.
Yeah, they chew stuff up pretty
rebuilding.
good. So.
And that's because, you would know this, Alan, it's because their teeth are constantly growing and they need to, like kind of with us, we need to keep our fingernails in place by cutting them. They do it by chewing.
Yes.
Yeah, and they can chew through some stuff. So, yeah. If you had a squirrel that was like the size of a beaver, would
That's
the squirrel
called a
be the better
capybara.
chewer? Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's called a capybara. We do have rodents that big, Joe.
Okay.
And they have to chew all the time, too.
Now, we're supposed to be appreciating squirrels today. I mean, you said something. When you say that, it reminds me of like bees. Like they take pollen and they pollinate, and we want bees. We do not want to lose our bee population. Well, are squirrels similar? I mean, you said I always see them moving stuff. They grab nuts, then they move it somewhere else or whatever.
Well, as part of a judicious mixed wood highland, like you take most of Tennessee, you've driven across the state.
Yeah.
And we've got a mixture of flatlands in the Memphis area, and we have a mixture of Piedmonts and other wooded areas all across the state. And a squirrel is pretty instrumental in burying acorns and pecans and these type of things because they're saving for food for the winter.
Right.
But they don't remember everything they buried, or next spring they didn't need it all. And guess what? It's already been buried. It's already been planted.
Okay.
So they aid in growing forest and our environment. They're also an important food source for smaller predators. Your weasels, your stoats, your bobcats, and that kind of things. Squirrels are a big part of their diet.
Hawks probably love squirrels.
Hawks and owls. They make entire livings off of squirrels on occasion. But we've now gotten to a point where we've brought so much nature has moved in with us into the cities. A friend of mine has a red-tailed hawk that visits her front yard almost daily.
Yeah.
Because her neighborhood used to have 1 million squirrels.
Used to.
And I have seen that red-tailed hawk reduce the population on occasion and owls have moved in. I even saw not too long ago in the middle of the city, right in my neighborhood, of a pile of turkey vultures.
Oh, yeah.
So guess what? We made a hospitable environment. Nature is going to make the most of it. So they're moving in with us.
And it's interesting when you think about squirrel propaganda or squirrel and I'm saying propaganda in the other sense. Like I was just thinking of that movie. I mean, one of the most beloved movies of all time is It's a Wonderful Life, and Uncle, what's his name? The uncle that lost the $8,000. He had a squirrel, a pet squirrel.
Had a pet squirrel.
People used to have pet squirrels.
People still do have pet squirrels.
And what is the uncle? Why am I forgetting? Uncle Billy. Uncle Billy, right? And then I was thinking of Bambi. You know, nobody cared about deer until they made the movie Bambi, and then suddenly it's like, wow, weren't deers thought of the same way, just as more or less large
deer
pests
are tasty.
that were dumb and they ran into cars and stuff?
Well, they also ate your garden.
Yeah, they wrecked your yard. They did, so. Okay, so watch what you, don't
watch
make little
what you wish
cutesy
for.
movies about animals that don't
No, that's
deserve
what I was
it.
going to say. We need to make the next Disney film about the cute, relatable squirrel.
Well, I don't know. I think
Disney just launched the show.
Yeah, we
it
need
just
to
came
dial
on.
it back. So
Already
okay,
know.
Well, it's Squirrel Appreciation Day, and if you've had any misadventures with squirrels, there's many of us that have. If they've tried to chew into your house, let us know about that too. But we want to circle back to our talk about cutting the cord. We were talking about what a difference it makes when you don't have that cord in the way. Now, of course, there's downsides. If you're going to be doing a job all day with a tool, you better have backup batteries with you. I mean, don't just, But there's one that I'm really tempted by, Alan, and because my circular saw is going on 25 years old. I mean, okay, I think I got my $59 out of this thing, but I'm really tempted by going with a battery-powered circular saw. My only small hiccup with this is I think it's the 18-volt battery, right?
Right.
And it looks like it's going to be a little well, I don't know. I can't tell. I was looking at it at the big box store. It doesn't display it with the battery in place. But what's your thought about that? Because I was just thinking how often the cord is in the way when I'm using my circular saw. Like you start pushing it, and then it gets snagged somewhere, and it makes your hand jump or something.
I'll mention my version of Old Blue.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about him when we come back.
Okay, and then we have a few more, and then, man, there's a lot to get to. Where's the show? Where is the time going, you guys? You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Now, this is the forklift. You need a license to operate this machine. That means the upstairs office workers can't drive it. Quiz, Mike. Should you drive the forklift?
I can and I have.
No.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we want to wish everybody a belated happy National Squirrel Appreciation Day. If you've got squirrel tails, good or bad, I mean, it's really hard to appreciate them, but I'm sure there's something they've done. Or if you've got squirrel, battle stories, if you've done combat with squirrels, and you came out the winner, which I'm happy to say happened for me. Now, in fairness, Jay Hill's the one that helped me with that, but we want to hear from you too. Most especially if you've got pictures of the squirrel damage. We want to see that. But we're in the middle of a conversation called Cutting the Cord, where we're considering the improvement, not just Well, I don't know. I guess it's just you could call this a lifestyle improvement of a lot of the battery powered handheld tools. Those are mostly what we're thinking of. And I told you, Alan, my circular saw is on it's kind of, well, I don't know. It may not be on its last legs. I just kind of want to get one. The main thing I'm having problems with my plug-in circular saw, it's about 25 years old, and keeping the little fence straight and square is turning. It's like I have to stick washers in there. I have to rig it up, and I want to get a 90-degree cut.
Done. Yeah, it's
and
done.
I'm like, so I'm tempted by the circular saw. Here's my only hang-up with it. The battery is right there on the side, and it's, to me, seems like it's in the line of fire where it's going to get a lot of sawdust on it, and I guess I'm concerned about the connection point, the connection port where the battery goes in, getting gunked up with sawdust. Is that an issue?
I know exactly which model you're talking about.
Okay.
Because I own its great-great-grandfather.
Yeah, okay. And torque, but I think the torque's not an issue anymore.
No. The drill I've got is actually 20 years old. This company's actually changed colors twice since I bought this one.
But what about the circular saw?
Yeah, I'm talking about the circular saw. You slap that 18-volt battery there in the side, and it is actually part of the keeping the sawdust out of you protection.
So it makes a little. Now, does it obstruct
makes a
your
little
view
bit
of the blade?
Nope, not at all.
Okay,
not at all. As a matter of fact, it even balances the unit out depending upon which battery you put on it.
Okay.
Now, if you put one of the big old 4-rated batteries, it's bigger and heavier than the 2-rated battery, but it's going to last 3 times as long.
Right.
Makes a good clean cut. Of course, you need a good clean blade. I have zero bad things to say about the general array and most of the brands that make, battery-powered tools now.
Yeah. Well, there's a tool that we're going to discuss shortly with your weekend review, and I don't want to take your thunder, so I'm not going to mention that. But the tool that we're talking about that you use is one that's notorious for the cord getting in the way, and it, when the cord is in the way, it's also dangerous. I mean, if you're using a circular saw and it's snagged somewhere behind you, and you're not prepared for it, or if you're standing on the cord, you ever have that happen?
No.
Yeah,
somebody trips over your cord while you're using the tool.
Right. But sanders are another one, especially I'm thinking of a belt sander or an orbital sander.
Yep.
Maybe you've got a big 4x8 something that you're sanding the surface, and you've got the orbital sander or whatever. And, man, I getting rid of that cord isn't a bad thing. So
No. Matter of fact, working on a house last year oh, my gosh, the battery-powered orbital sanders made all the difference because now up on the ladder working on cleaning up work, going through, because we're touching up a lot of mud and a lot of sheetrock, and being on the ladder without the cord was so much safer and so much easier.
Now, have you ever dropped a battery-powered? I have to say, I have dropped my battery-powered drill about 15 feet onto concrete.
Yep.
It made it. There was a little dent in the side, but it still worked, right? I don't think I would recommend trying it, but
no.
What's the danger if you damage the battery? Like, what if you do drop it off and it still works, but maybe it's been breached or?
Well, if the battery's been damaged, get a new battery. I mean,
well, how do you know? I'm saying, is it possible that it's working, but it's also leaking something, or is going to start on fire?
Generally, I haven't had any problem with that. Generally, for me, if the battery got destroyed, it got destroyed. I mean, it was cracked open, and you just looked at it and went, time to get a new one.
Right.
Let's drop that one back in the battery recycle bin at the big box store and get me a new battery.
Okay, gotcha. Now, the last one I have listed here is one that most people wouldn't even think of, but we do have battery-powered versions of this. As a matter of fact, Allan mentioned one. I think he mentioned this exact tool a couple weeks ago, and that's a battery-powered hot glue gun.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it seems like a hot glue gun, those things are like $2 at the, whatever, but that cord is a pain. They never sit right.
It is like trying to give Medusa a haircut.
Yeah.
That thing, the cord is everywhere. And especially, for you and I, a hot glue gun comes into play in generally the weirdest possible areas. especially when I'm doing like a decorative finish on something.
Yeah.
Because I work with a lot more hotels and stuff than you do. And sometimes you just need, all right, we just need to put this trim on that board, and then that board goes up.
And you want it to happen fast.
A hot glue gun is the perfect tool to get this done in 30 seconds or less.
Right.
I have a question with regards to the difference in properties between different types of glues. What's the difference between the sticking power between hot glue and super glue? Because both glues, in theory, are hot.
Well, I have a theory.
Well, hot glue is not glue. Hot glue is plastic.
Right?
You have melted plastic, and you have let it cool, adhering to whatever substance you pressed into it. So it is not technically a glue. We call it a hot glue because we use it to stick stuff together. But you're basically doing plastic welding.
Yeah.
And that's just drastically different than any of the quote-unquote super glue types things, which is an actual chemical bond.
Yeah, and super glue, in my opinion, Max, for just about every application is going to be way stronger than hot glue. I mean, I've had hot glue things where you put it on. It's mostly just to give you an extra set of hands. Like you tack it up there with hot glue. But if you were to take it, you could pull it right off. Most cases, because it's not really penetrating into the pores as much because it cools off so fast.
Well, when you think about it as plastic welding,
right,
it suddenly makes more sense.
Yeah,
because it's not a glue. It's just designed to perform this light duty type thing.
Because when I've used hot glue before as a kid, and they form little chunks, kind of like the little chocolate chips, so to say, it kind of like, it's so easy to just peel off with your fingernails.
Yes. Yeah. But that's why I tell
people,
if
you get it on your fingers, it hurts for a second, then you can pull it off. So
well, that's why I tell everybody, you got to think of that as plastic welding. So when you're doing decorative light duty work, a hot glue gun can indeed be your best friend in the whole world.
Right.
But I would never use it for anything durable or heavy. Now, I have used it to hold heavy material in place because I'm going to put a reinforcing device on top of it.
Before you screw it in. Like I said, it's almost giving you that extra set of hands.
It does. It just kept the material exactly where I needed it until I could get the reinforcement in place and screwed on, and then the whole thing lifted up to where it goes.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just any number of things, and it's like, I guess my thing is I was late to the party with a lot of these battery-powered tools, but I have to admit, if I'm being honest, that there's a lot of lifestyle improvements that come about with that. Just makes it easier, and it just gives you more options, too. I mean, like you were saying.
I love cordless vacuum cleaners.
And it's funny.
Oh, my gosh.
Now that I think of it, I can't remember the last time I even used my 100-foot extension cord, which I used to use on a daily basis, and I barely ever pull it out anymore. So
you still carry it.
Yeah.
You might need it.
Yeah. I was about to say leaf blower, but wait.
No,
they're battery-powered, too.
Exactly. Well, hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but there's a lot to get to in the second hour of Tool Talk Radio. We're going to find out what Allan did this week, and we're also going to learn that not all shovels are created equal.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, it's a good day to go over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page. Go to @ToolTalkRadio and check out the post we've made over there. Shortly, we're going to talk about the crown jewel. What I think it's fair to call this the crown jewel of the Mid-South, which is right underneath our feet, the Memphis Aquifer, which is going to be our great moments in building history, which, let's be honest, nature did 99% of the work on this, but we do have some of the best water in the country, maybe even in the world. We have great water, and it's all because of the aquifer, so we're going to talk about that. Today is also National Squirrel, it's a belated National Squirrel Appreciation Day, and we'd love to hear from you if you've got some squirrel tales. We're going to,
I don't know if we want to see the squirrel tails.
Yeah, but if you've got if you appreciate squirrels or you appreciate the fact that you've conquered, you've been battling squirrels and you won the battle, or if you just want to commiserate because you're in battle with squirrels, let us know about that as well. But Max, I thought you said we have a text. Is it? Is it regarding this?
Actually, yes.
Okay, well, let's hear it, man. What do we got?
Thank you, Danny.
Question mark, Danny?
You'll see why I question mark saying thank you.
Okay.
Honor a squirrel today. Have one for dinner.
Now, I don't even like...
Had many
thanks.
fried squirrels as a boy hunting with my dad. Makes great gravy, Danny.
Okay, Danny, thank you for that. I don't know, man. Okay,
Danny, I'll send you some recipes later. It's
I was
all
going to
right.
say, now, how do you like to prepare your squirrel, Alan? Because I'm assuming you've had it. I've never eaten squirrel as far as I know.
Yeah, a little brown gravy, onion. Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. I'm just asking.
It's like any wild game.
Danny, okay. This is a little silly aside.
Well,
but-
welcome to the South. We do hunt in the South.
Well, I wanted to tell you something because I moved here from, I grew up in Chicago. I lived in San Diego a long time, and I moved here. I told you this, Alan. I moved to northern Mississippi to do mission work, and it was kind of a culture shock for me. And there was this old gentleman that I met, really funny guy. He was this old retired guy, and he said the thing he misses more because he was he didn't have the same mobility that he used to have. He goes, man, the thing I miss more than anything else is sitting on my front porch and shooting squirrels.
Yeah.
I said, really? I guess that's a sport, and it's
it's a small,
one way to solve the
fast-moving
problem.
target. I give him mad props.
I mean, remember what Luke Skywalker said? He likes shooting womp rats with his T-16.
I'm just kind of pointing out that don't let them go to waste.
I guess. I don't know, man. But I didn't know there's an entire squirrel culture going on.
There is. I mean, they're cute, they're fuzzy, they're fun to watch. As long as they're not chewing up your house, they're kind of cool to have around. But they are also part of the food chain.
Not to beat this into the ground, but I'm thinking of that Monty Python sketch, The Frog and Peach, where they have the frog laying on its back with a peach in its mouth in a nice honey glaze.
Yeah.
Well, how do you serve a squirrel? Is it like that, or do you make a squirrel? Do you make stuffed squirrel? Do you make a squirrel loaf?
But the way I had it was basically roasted with and served brown gravy, fried onions.
Okay.
So.
He's holding the recipe close to his vet. That's what it is. You don't like to give things away.
Well, it's basically the same recipe you would use for like rabbit.
Okay.
So,
as though we eat that every day, too.
I
So.
don't know about you, but I love me some rabbit. So.
All right. Well, Danny, question mark. thanks
There's
for that.
also a reason I'm called the food dude.
Yeah, exactly.
His name is just Danny. The reason I was question marking him is because I didn't know whether or not to say thank you for this.
Well, here's the thing.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming it's a he, but, we have our beloved Danny Bruns over at 98.1 The Max, so we don't know. Danny could be a...
If it makes any difference, the letter of Danny's name ends with a Y.
Okay, it's
I'm
probably
fairly
a he.
certain, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, Danny, for that. That's what we're looking for. We want, this is where we're celebrating Squirrel Appreciation Day. So
That's one way to appreciate them.
Okay, well, that kind of threw a curve on the conversation, but let's refocus here, you guys.
Oh, the humanity.
Now, this could take all day if we don't watch ourselves, but we're going to find out what Alan did. I see three main things here. Can we get to the baseboards, though, because
You want to start with the baseboards.
well, the reason is it ties in with our conversation earlier, and I didn't want to steal your thunder, so that's why.
Well, all right, we got to back up just a little bit. A friend of mine has a 100-year-old plus house.
Oh,
And
that's
so
been a big renovation.
matching anything from this house is a bear because everything was hand tooled 120 years ago. So let's fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and we began looking at replacing a missing piece of baseboard. And that particular type of baseboard is not for sale at your local hardware store.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Right.
But I kept looking at it, and I went, I recognize that pattern.
How big was it? Like, how like older homes, sometimes they had the chunkier.
Oh yeah,
Like
this
the
is
6 or 8 inch.
this is a big old beefy 6-inch, but it just
Okay.
had a little decorative edge across the top. And for some reason, that kept hitting me in the back of my head going, you've seen this somewhere before.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago, we had a weird project where we were having to put a lot of cover plates in a facility.
Right.
And rather than just putting a big old ugly board on the wall, I went and brought in my router, and we routed the edges around the little 12 by 12 patches. So now they look adorably decorative.
Right.
Well, this year for Christmas at the big box store, one of them was selling a router bit kit for a ridiculously low price.
And router bits are not cheap.
Oh, router bits are not cheap.
Yeah.
And this was like a 12-bit kit, and this was like your raw basics. There was nothing fancy in this kit, but these were your raw basics.
Right.
And when I was standing there looking at it in the store, it hit me that one of those bits was the pattern that I was remembering at the 125-year-old house.
Right. Yep.
And it was just a simple router bit that somebody had hand cut 125 years ago. But now, sitting there next to it was the brand new 18-volt handheld router.
So you were feeling the need to
purchase
a new tool.
I felt the need for a brand new 18-volt handheld router and a big box of really inexpensive router bits. And, I'm happy to report a 6-inch board. Now, I had to trim it down about 1/4 of an inch to make it line up with the older boards.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we cut that trim edge on it. Just, it took a minute. I'm used to the old 2-handed plunge router, so it took me a minute to kind of figure out where to hold and how to hold the new router. But, I messed up one practice piece of board and perfect cut the next one.
It's funny you stole my word, because if ever there's a tool that you need to practice board, it's a router. You got to get that depth right. You got to make sure you're going steady. You got to make sure routers can be you can mess up a cut.
Oh yeah, you can jack some stuff up pretty fast. However, I got to tell you, the minute you find the sweet spot, just how you feel and it works, and you're getting the results that you want, routers are a bunch of fun.
And as long as we're talking about routers, routers. Okay, if you're going with the grain, which usually call ripping, it's a cakewalk. You go, oh, okay. But if you're gonna have to do some cross cutting, if you're going across the grain, boy, you got to be cautious. Go slow and be aware that. Yeah. Well, also, clamp everything anyway. But I'm just thinking it can chip, it can fray, and everything like that.
You just got to be careful, and again, like all other jobs, don't rush.
Yeah.
Don't force your job. And please, if you get a new router, be very, very aware, because I think the only tool more dangerous is, your cutters.
Yeah, and a router will bite in and suddenly take off if you don't, and you don't want a router flying off.
No.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to say one thing before we move on to your other stuff, because one of the things when I think of a router, if I think I have to buy a router bit, unless it's just a very straightforward one, my go-to place is every town usually has that niche woodworking shop. We have one here we can't mention because they don't advertise, but they're, I'm a big support your local woodwork shop. If you're lucky enough to have one, they'll have every kind of cutter. They have that one saw that nobody else has. They have that one device for woodworking, and if you couldn't have found it, if you didn't luck out and find it at the big box store, go to there and you're going to find it. But support those, because those are cool shops, and they're unique, and they're good to have in your community. So support your local woodwork shop. So we barely scratched the surface on what Allan did this week. So but he was celebrating his brand new battery powered router, and when we come back, we're going to find out what he did. Never mind. I don't want to over-tease it. Stay tuned, you guys.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
This is glue. Strong stuff.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Unless it's hot blue.
There you go. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And, man, we're starting to get a little bit of a backlog here, you guys. We better be efficient with our use of the rest of the show. So we've got a follow-up. We got a follow-up text from Danny, which is really sort of horrifying, but interesting because it's not my problem. So it's like
props to Danny though. He's like in his 70s and
good
he's
for
still
you, Danny.
fighting the squirrels.
He's still doing battle. So we'll discuss that momentarily. We're also going to find out more about what Allan did this week, which was a pretty comprehensive and well-rounded week. Before we do that, though, speaking of well-rounded and comprehensive, let's talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Well, we're going to see Jay next week at the home show. That'll be fun.
We will.
He'll probably be on the air unless he's running around getting things ready. But Jay, we love Jay Hill. He's all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to siding to gutters to windows and interior remodeling. But don't call Jay to remodel your kitchen. He's very adamant about that.
Right.
He'll partner. Like if you want to come in and do the partial remodel, he'll do that. He doesn't want to get into all the.
He doesn't do kitchens or bathrooms. He does everything else.
Well, for one thing, in fairness to Jay, is he needs to keep. He can't be tied down on a job for 5 months or something, because that's what can happen in a kitchen remodel. He needs to get the job done and move on to the next project. But when it comes to roofing especially, we always showcase that because, Jay is one of the top-rated roofers in this entire region. He's always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer and always 5 stars with Good Housekeeping. I think that's how they do it, with 5 stars. But what also sets Jay apart is the fact that, among other things, these are roofing systems and these are gutter systems and these are systems that work together to protect the outside of your home. And also what sets Jay apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent, which is hugely helpful because one of the things that he's really helped a lot of us with, including Allan and myself, is that if you have damage to your home that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, it's really not a straightforward process at all, and it takes an advocate. And Jay should be the first person you call if you're wondering if you have any damage that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance. He'll come out. It's a free consultation. He'll inspect the damage, and if there is a path forward with replacement or fixing it, he'll help you with that process, and it's going to save you a lot of money. And it suddenly takes a real daunting, horrible problem and turns it into a really exciting prospect. And we've benefited from his expertise ourselves. So we love Jay Hill. We love his the business culture he's created over there. He has a great staff, and he has great technicians and installers. And we just love the work that Jay does, and he brings an energy and enthusiasm to every project. And he wants you to call him directly. He doesn't, he wants that initial contact directly. So call him. And like I said, put it to the test, because we are we're not that far away from the big game. Call him in the middle of the big game and ask him about your roofing problems and see if he really answers. Let's try that. Call him at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, well, Max, before we find out more about what Allan did, what's our follow-up here from Danny?
And he's got like scaffolding and everything. He's 76 and he's really at it. The thing is you only saw half of the battle with the squirrels in terms of the covering. There are other pictures that he's got on his eaves of the squirrels getting in through the eaves.
Well, Danny, today is it's a belated National Squirrel Appreciation Day, but I don't think he appreciates the squirrels. But Allan, I've never seen damage this blatant and obnoxious. It is a hole. To me, it looks like it's a good 12 inches across and about 4 or 5 inches wide that's just been chewed into the eave. They could just walk into that thing.
Dude, that is what is known as a rodent highway.
Yeah. And if you go down that eave, it's like a straight shot to any part of that wall, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can just picture like the squirrel bellhop with a little cap on, like saying, "Welcome in, sir."
Yep. Hey, you are pretty close to what's going on.
Well, it looks like he's got the tools for the job, though. I mean,
he's getting it repaired, and he's getting it covered up. That's excellent.
Okay, but the thing about it, I hate to say it, is you cover up one exit, it's kind of like Hydra. you cut off one head and 5 more jump out. But it's I guess I would check, Danny, while you're up there. I'm sure you already know this, but lift up those shingles and see if there's any more breaches under there, because it'd probably be a good time to put some metal flashing under that.
Oh, yeah.
And the bigger size, just to do that. But let us know how that goes. I hope you win the battle. So, but
absolutely.
That's what we like, with our text. Nice, concise text with pictures to accompany it. So, but Allan, shifting back to what you were doing this week, we learned all about you making a custom baseboard. That's a pretty satisfying thing.
Well,
especially you save yourself some money and you didn't have to get rid of the old baseboard.
And you fit that baby in there, and just it looks good, and boom, there you go. It's kind of like, and a 125-year-old house keeps its character.
And you had an excuse to go buy a battery-powered router.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
So the less glamorous part of my week involved, well, basically digging and filling in holes.
Yeah, you do a lot of that.
Stuff breaks underground. There's only one way to get to it. You got to get there. And most of the people I've worked with this week have truly appreciated the fact that I know the difference between what shovel does what.
Well, I have to imagine with all the gardening and all the landscaping you do, you probably have an arsenal of shovels, right? You got the variety pack.
I have all 4 of the majors.
Okay.
The one that got really used a lot this week was, of course, the trenching shovel, which is the one that looks like a factory reject. It's a skinny shovel and it's bent, but it will dig a 6-inch wide trench a foot deep like nobody's business in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you can dig posts for like your fence boards and
Well,
stuff.
I have a post hole digger.
Yeah.
I have an ergonomic post hole digger, which looks like it got sat on. Well, it's because the handles are bent.
Right.
The handles actually cross over and create space. So it looks like somebody did something terrible to my post hole digger, but it actually works amazingly well.
What's the difference between the post hole digger and a auger?
An auger is actually like a giant screw that you're driving into the ground. And a post hole digger is more like 2 sharpshooter shovels next to each other.
Oh, it's
and
like a claw machine.
Like a scoop. Yeah, kind of
Well,
like
it is almost, yeah. It looks like a little baby a little baby excavator, but it's the manual version.
Also, you don't see any funny YouTube videos of post hole diggers, but you do see that with those augers when 2 guys grab one and then it hits
one
a
of them
rock
gets
and they
thrown
spin
over.
around.
It gets thrown around, and yeah.
Those things are dangerous, man, if you use them
Yeah,
incorrectly.
but there's a new 18-volt 6-inch auger that I saw not too long ago that I've kind of got an itch for, but I haven't bought it yet. But if I do, I'll bring it in.
Though, shovels are such a cheap investment. It's like, why not? If you're going to use it, especially if you're going to do the kind of work Allan does, just get yourself a few shovels. Don't cheap out. I mean,
I've got, of course, the one everyone named Dexter, and that is a roof cutter shovel.
Right.
It doesn't dig soil so well as it does cut in and get you started. It'll get through your turf. It'll get through your tree roots really fast. And if you do look at it, it looks like a serrated murder shovel. It really is.
I didn't know yours was serrated.
Oh, it's got serrated edges
roots.
and the fangs at the bottom with the sharp cutting tip.
That sounds like the name of a song from like a punk rock band.
Oh, yeah.
Serrated murder shovel.
There you go.
Yeah. Then, of course, you've got your standard spade. I got a post hole digger, the sharpshooter, which is the slender, the 6-inch wide, but it drives in very well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to get depth or you're trying to cut the wall of a pit,
right?
Because a lot of times when you have underground work to do, I know we're working on a 1 1/4-inch pipe, but you need a 3-foot wide hole 5 feet deep to get the work done.
Yeah, and you got to get under it, and it's getting to an underground pipe. Getting to underground anything is a hassle.
I'm not exactly the smallest person on the planet, so I need a pretty fair-sized pit to get down in there to work on this tiny little pipe.
Yeah.
Or you just dangle me like you said with the guy 5 feet down.
We did do that to the smallest member of the party this week. They did get held by the ankles and dropped down there so we could get this done and get out of there because it was cold.
Yeah, and I guess how deep did you have to go to fix this water line?
This one was about 5 foot deep. Yeah, we really
Holy
had to.
smokes, man.
Well,
You better hope you're digging in the right place. I mean,
Well, that was another. We were a little iffy about that, so we kept
man.
having to turn the water on to see where the water would bubble up. So we were making it worse by targeting because we kept getting the soil wet. So we were having to haul more and more mud out of the hole. So,
okay, well, I'm glad. Better you than me, but I'm glad you had. I'm glad you had the right tools for the job. So
yes.
Hey, speaking of underground activity, when we come back in our great moments in building history, we're going to talk about really, like we said, the crown jewel of the Mid-South, which is the Memphis Aquifer.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Barnacles! What could be worse than a giant paint bubble?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And there's a lot out on the table that we're not going to recap because we got business to get to. So let's do it, Max.
And now, great moments in building history.
Well, I'm going to be relying on Allan's expertise on this one, but this is how is it we've mentioned this and we've talked about it, but we've never focused this particular thing as our great moment in building history. But we're going to talk about the Memphis Aquifer now. Of course, if we're going to be specific, the aquifer is nature, and so hats off to Mother Nature on providing us with a great source of clean water, really some of the best water in the country. But there's a lot of, obviously, things we had to do to cooperate to get the water out of the ground.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Memphis has been an inhabited area for hundreds, if not thousands of years, because we have the junction of basically the Wolf River Basin and the Mississippi River.
We're very central.
So, I mean, we had a lot of good water, good fresh water to start with. And as Memphis has grown, of course, river water has a certain challenge in the fact that it is what we're going to say it's surface active water. That means
muddy,
stuff
right?
lives in it. No, it means stuff lives in it. So, if you have a big cattle ranch 100 miles upstream from you, congratulations. You're sharing your water with a great big giant cattle ranch.
And we know what what cows do. And
we're just going to leave it at that.
You don't want to be downriver of that.
Exactly. So we're going to say surface water, while wonderful, does have certain challenges. The first thing we found out in Memphis is we have what's called the shallow aquifer.
Okay.
AKA Memphis is a swamp. We really were. Memphis was a swamp. We've mostly drained it at this point, but Memphis fundamentally is a wetlands.
Yeah.
So you drill down just a little bit, you hit water. Now, this is water that has soaked in from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So if the ground is clean, your shallow aquifer is clean. But below that, we have what is called a confining layer of clay.
Okay.
Anybody that's dug deep in their backyard has hit good old-fashioned Memphis clay. This protects the next aquifer, which is the Sparta Aquifer, or better known as the Memphis Aquifer. And what an aquifer is a layer of sand, clay, pebble, rock, whatever, mixed with water. And it is fed in from somewhere else on the surface.
Yeah, it's not necessarily underground pockets of water. It's not like a big underground cave
moving
of water.
This is actually moving water.
But it's moving through a porous thing, almost like if you take your sponge in the sink and you ran water, it'll go through it.
It'll get through it eventually.
Right. Yeah.
And the Memphis Aquifer is mostly what we have drilled into.
Okay.
Now, the good news for us is it's only 200 or 300 feet down. It's not thousands of feet away.
Right.
So we have a beautiful sand-filtered aquifer that is recharged a little to the east of us and also is recharged a couple of 100 miles to the west of us.
Can I say something, too, as an outsider that moved to Memphis later in my life? And I will say I've lived in places where you never get rain. And then I've lived in places where it's almost like too much rain and snow. For whatever you want to say, I think Memphis gets the exact amount of rain. Like that, it's a tolerable amount of rain. It's not as rainy as you would think. You called it a swamp and everything, but really we get a nice, pleasant mixture of rain and sunny days and everything.
My logic is that we live in the middle of the country, so we get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we do. We get just enough seasonal change, but without the hardcore, swings one way or another. But I'm just saying. But I guess that's where our aquifers fill up
to go
from, right?
back about 75 million years when the Mississippi Valley that we see now was actually quite a bit lower because the plates underneath us hadn't quite lifted us up yet.
Okay.
And this was a shallow inland sea. So what we have is layers of clay and sand built up over the millions of years as we rose up out of the sea. And what that does is it gives the center of the country, the Mississippi Valley, a very unique structure, because not only do we have a shallow aquifer and a Memphis aquifer, you go down about 1,000 feet, we have the Fort Pillow aquifer. You go down about 2,500 feet, and you have the McNary aquifer. So we are actually an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the amount of filtered, clean water underneath the Mississippi Valley.
So that poet who said water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink is a crock?
Well, he was stuck in the ocean.
He was in the ocean.
He was in the ocean, dude. What we have is water, water everywhere. You just have to get to it.
Well, and I've heard something about that, because when I'm thinking of it, I think of how it recharges itself when it rains. It filters into the ground, especially when you have a nice steady rain that doesn't just, it has a chance to just kind of soak in. But I heard the term, when it comes to our aquifer here in the Mid-South, when it comes to the water, use it or lose it. Like, it'll pass through. Is that correct? Like, it's not like we have this basin of water and we're going to drain it and empty it and then now it's all gone, right? It's continually recharging itself.
Well,
unless we get a 7-year drought or something.
Well,
like
exactly.
That.
But what we have is where the aquifers absorb the most of their water.
Yeah.
So like the McNary Aquifer is named for the fact that it is mostly under McNary County.
Oh, well, that's straightforward. Yeah.
And it goes all the way over to pretty close to the base of the Ozarks over by Crow Creek, Arkansas.
Okay.
So that is the deepest aquifer that directly affects the Memphis area. But each aquifer is a layer of, again, sand and rock and pebbles and gravel. And then you got a big layer of clay. And that clay is what really prevents the aquifers from blending and contamination from getting into the aquifer. And this is why it gets important that people understand where their water comes from and where it goes, because what we do on the surface winds up either in a river or stream or possibly soaking into the ground and becoming part of the aquifer.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I remember around town, and I still see the bumper stickers and I see the signs sometimes, and it'll say, save the aquifer. And actually, the truth is, I don't really know. I know what it means. We have to obviously protect our aquifer, but is it because if we drill in because we want to build something else or we want to do something else, we risk puncturing and contaminating? Like, I'm thinking of, okay, well, if there was a deposit of oil way underneath the aquifer and you drill through, you risk oil getting into the water, right?
Yes.
Or is that what they meant by save the aquifer? Because
no,
I didn't know what the danger was that we were.
What our danger is overuse.
Okay.
We do not want to overuse what our aquifer can provide. Now,
it's got to have time to filter everything and do its job.
Well, all right, Memphis recently got blessed with about 10 inches of snow.
Okay. Yeah.
And it didn't just go away. It took several days for that snow to melt.
Right.
So instead of 10 inches of rain was a little over 10 inches of snow was a little over about an inch of rain. So instead of falling as a rain and washing off the surface and moving on into a water basin like the Wolf River or the Mississippi, it sat on the ground and then it melted slowly. Now, a lot of it did run off, but a lot of it deep soaked into the soil. So our shallow aquifer right now is pretty much full.
There you go.
And the aquifer recharge zones to the east of us also got quite a bit of wet weather. So those recharging zones, the water that fell there will be under Memphis in a few years.
Isn't that so? It takes a few years and it moves its way through.
It depends upon how much you're pulling out of it, but these zones, these surface areas that allow the water to soak in, really get us our water, and it's filtered and it's clean and we're safe, and we don't have a lot of issues like I'll pick on Chicago again
with our lime deposits.
Well, Florida has lime deposits, which is fabulous, but a different problem, because there, if you pull your water out too fast, you drop your water table, you get sinkholes.
Oh, that's right. They're the ones getting all the sinkholes and everything.
So the other thing is, because of the way an aquifer works and the way the water moves through, there's a reason all of your really big distilleries are in Tennessee and Kentucky.
Oh, and why?
Because we've got great water.
Now that's interesting. So whiskey makers want this water.
That
explains a lot.
They want this beautiful limestone or sand filtered water that Kentucky and Tennessee are blessed with.
Now, what sort of, I heard the word porosity.
Yes.
What sort of porosity does our aquifer have versus other areas?
Okay, when you talk about porosity, you're talking about how well can the water saturate and then thus move through a rock. Joe's example of a sponge is great, and I'll explain it when we come back.
Yeah, because not every part of the sponge is the same. So, yeah. All right, that's a good cue. And then also, we're going to find out how we get the water out of the aquifer.
Yes.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I live by the quarry. We should hang out by the quarry and throw things down there.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
Is that why the aquifer is fouled?
Yeah, don't throw things in the aquifer.
Don't throw stuff in the aquifer.
And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. In just a moment, we're going to get back to our conversation in great moments in building history about the Memphis Aquifer. But, Max, will you read half of the text that we got back? Boy, Danny's on a roll. I wonder if Danny put a little something in his coffee this morning. I don't know.
I think that's just the way he lives.
Okay, so what did Danny have to say? He's already been sending us reports about his squirrel
I wish
battle.
I could say the other half.
Okay, well, what
Get
is
this. My wife's brother rescued squirrels and lovingly nursed them back to health.
Yeah.
That sounds like a Seinfeld episode that we saw. So, okay, so I don't even know what that looks like, a squirrel triage. Are squirrels likely, if you're trying to nurse them back to health, Allan, to bite you out of instinct? Like, is it squirrels' natural instinct to attack us, or would they?
No. And actually having
owned a squirrel.
Actually having worked with an animal rehab, a licensed rehabber, and fed baby squirrels, you get little nut paste stuff that they sell to rehab them. They actually do. And you sit around and feed them. They grow up and they are very attached to you, and they'll run around on you, and they're your buddy. But do not ever forget that it is a wild animal, and it's going to grow up.
And it'll probably have rabies. So
no, actually, rodents can't have rabies.
Oh, okay.
When you said the whole triage thing, all I hear is da 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 da.
The MASH unit. Yeah, but then Danny. Anyway, Danny.
I like
shame
Danny.
on you.
I like Danny.
I
like Danny.
He didn't repay the. Okay,
I
whatever.
like Danny. Danny and I think alike.
Okay, whatever. But okay. Let's get back to talking about Danny. We do appreciate the texts, and I wonder what you've been drinking this morning. But anyway, hey, Allan. So we've learned about how aquifers work, and it's really it's a filtering system. I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago on Tool Talk about how we had that big snow, and even 8 hours later, after the snow was all gone, I just saw water and water and water running. No, maybe it was the rain. Whatever it was, I was just marveling at the fact that we have water running through the grass and running through the dirt, and it was coming out onto the curb just clean.
Yes.
It was being filtered naturally, and that's all an aquifer is. So really, is our aquifer more about the quality of the rocks and the gravel and the sand and everything that it's moving through?
Yes.
Or is it a combination of the water?
It is all of the above.
So we're taking rainwater, which we assume is more or less clean, and going into a perfect filtration system and running through, and we have a pretty steady supply of rain. So is that why we're in such a good position here? Or?
Well, yeah, we're kind of blessed. We were given a variety of advantages that we get to take advantage of. Mm-hmm. To give you an idea of the world's potable fresh water, about 90% of that comes from or is found in underground aquifers.
Wow.
Because if you go to the Mexican Yucatan, did you know there are no lakes in the Yucatan?
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
It's completely covered in trees, but what they have are cenotes, which are holes in the limestone, and all of their water is underground.
Okay.
So just to kind of give you the idea of just how powerful underground water is.
Wow. Okay.
If you drive from Memphis to Chattanooga, when you're driving through the mountains, you will see water leaking out of the sides that have been cut.
Well, I've noticed that too, yeah. When I drive to Knoxville and stuff, I see that. So
that soil is not solid. There is so much going on down there. So now the big thing is around 15 million American homes actually operate off of a water well. Mm-hmm. And one of the properties I work with operates off of a well that is drilled into the shallow aquifer. So this was over here in Fayette County. And basically what you do is you find out whether or not you've got water under your property. You can do that with a simple geological map. Most of the Mid-South, you've got water under your property somewhere.
Okay.
So, Joe, yes, you could have a well in your backyard.
What would be the advantage? Am I saving the $18 that I spend?
Yeah, in the city, no. You're not really, there's no advantage to having that. To not having city water, because they're getting it from the aquifer. Of what you are doing, like in this property I'm working on in Fayette County, there's not city water.
Yeah.
This is, out in the field. This is out in the field. We're building a big old house out here in the middle of the field. So we have had a well company come out, and they said, yep, you got water underneath you. Here's the geological survey says we got water. And what they did was insert basically a thin auger, and they did a casing. So that what it is you drill down a little bit, you screw a casing into that hole. You keep adding casing pieces to the casing until you hit water.
Right.
So they drill down, they get to there. Now, once you have got your casing in place, the well is done, and you now cap it with a well control unit, or generally an electric pump.
I was going to say you got to pump it out of there. So it's
well, it depends on where you fall in the aquifer. Different aquifers are under different amounts of pressure.
Okay.
So you can hit a pressurized area, because keep in mind, all this soil is sitting on top of the aquifer. It's not just water running through a lake.
Yeah, it's squeezing it.
It could be compressed. So when you punch a hole into the aquifer, that water might come shooting out.
Right.
And it might not. You might not be in a pressurized area. So in this case, it is capped with a pump, and the pump is then connected to your water, which now runs into the house just like any place else.
Now, do we have any natural places where the water comes out of the aquifer where it's more or less clean, ready to go water? Or is
yes, as a matter of fact, there's a well-known site here in Memphis that used to be open to the public in the middle of Audubon Park.
I'm trying to think of what that.
We had a natural spring that has now been capped, and you can't see it from the public. But back in the 70s, they actually had where it bubbled up out of the ground as a natural spring right there in the middle of the park.
Now that's
at the Botanical Garden.
Did it ever do like I think of Old Faithful? Like if pressure shifted, would it ever like shoot up or stop running for a bit? Or
well,
like,
you could have that happen if we had an earthquake.
That's what I'm wondering. It's like just
in this case, as I remember, it was a number of years ago when I saw it. It had a lovely white sand base, and you could see the water bubbling up from deep underneath the ground.
Would the water get hot from coming out? Like
no, it was 55 degrees.
Okay.
Someone was asking with regards to like aquifers and these sorts of waters. Brew Blaster is asking, what about Raleigh Springs?
Raleigh Spring, do they have
like the Raleigh Springs Mall area?
Yeah, I guess so.
Again, that is sitting over the top of the Sparta or Memphis Aquifer. Yes.
Right.
There were originally, when that area was being established 100 years ago, a number of people out there had wells, and not only did they have wells, they also had septic tank systems.
Oh, my.
Okay.
Yeah. Brew Blaster was also saying, too, with regards to appreciation for our unique water system. He said, I remember when I was quite young, my parents took us on vacation through Texas.
Oh.
I drank some water at a restaurant and thought they were trying to poison us and wondered how they drank that. It gave me a greater appreciation for Memphis water.
It's true, man. If you grew up with this, you wouldn't want to go anywhere else.
Oh,
and drink
my
your water.
gosh.
So, no,
Yeah.
you could really just bottle our water and ship it off to, anywhere.
And people do, actually. They
exactly.
do.
But it definitely deserved a salute. I don't know what took us so long in our great moments in building history, but the Memphis Aquifer, well, boy, we barely squeezed that in. Talk about compression. Anyway, the show's over. I hear the music, Alan. But another well-rounded and unusual episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can. So on behalf of my buddy, Alan Gilbreth, and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.
Now go hug a squirrel.